Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Curious Realms official coverage of the Turning the Tide 9/11 Justice Conference right here in Washington, D.C. We have the great pleasure of being joined by researcher Wayne Coste. Welcome to the show for the first time, Wayne.
Well, thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure to be invited. This is a cause that I have been behind since things happened. And I have always said that at the very minimum, the government knew something, did nothing. But there is so much evidence to other things. And of course, tons of rabbit holes that people have dug over the years. And we had a great conversation yesterday. You're here answering some questions on whenever people ask, stuff like that. But you have some amazing research that you've come across into the attack on the Pentagon as well as the grounded plane in Pennsylvania. How did you first come to the world of 9/11 research, and how did you come to your research on those two?
Well, in the beginning, of course, it all goes back to watching the Twin Towers be impacted and burning, and then miraculously collapsing all the way down. And my jaw dropped about as to the ground as fast as the buildings did, and it's like someone's going to have to explain this to me. And it sat that way pretty uncomfortably for many years, and then in the fall of 2000, and people kept whispering in my ear saying that, oh, there's something really wrong, and I kind of blew it off. In the fall of 2007, I ended up with the opportunity to see a local screening of Blueprint for Truth, by Richard Gage. So I went there explaining to see an architect explain how the buildings were built and why they failed. I was not expecting to go into a presentation on the buildings were brought down by controlled demolition. It was not something I was expecting. And I spent the next 18 months getting my controlled demolition amometer to go from 60% all the way up to 100%. 18 months is a long time to be uncertain and studying the stuff. And then around 2010, I got involved in a small group and ended up getting invited into the architects and engineers to help on the presenters team or congressional outreach. Actually, this was congressional outreach at the time. And so I did that, worked with them in various capacities as a volunteer. Ultimately, I was on the board, and then I formed my own organization, and we parted ways. I created the 9/11 Truth Outreach, which became 9/11 TAP.
Okay.
That was to try to take over a role that architects and engineers was stepping away from, which is outreach. How do you teach people to do outreach?
Sure.
So in this role of doing outreach, one of the things that I wanted to do was to explain what to tell people, to tell other people, and to do it accurately and with the best information possible. So began working with Barbara Honegger in order to develop descriptions of what actually happened at the Pentagon, because she was, I thought, the most knowledgeable person because she has been studying it and talking about it for so long. But over the years, I ended up trying to put on a television show, a 5-series show on the Pentagon, talking on 9/11. One of the series was going to be about the Pentagon. And I was going to ridicule large plane impact, talk about the alternatives for the flyover, all this other stuff. But in order to get ready for it, I dug into what the photos showed, what the video showed, what people said. And so I wanted to be prepared. And ultimately, I woke up to the fact that things weren't as I expected. The key thing was that the distance between the engine impact into the generator trailer and a retaining wall was 42 feet, and that's the spacing for 757. I said, ooh, that looks, I can't explain this. Yeah. And I lost sleep for at least 3 nights trying to grapple with the fact that my entire paradigm had just been contradicted by the evidence.
For a second time.
Well, this was the first time. I believe.
Well, the first time you weren't even prepared to be a believer, or
Right.
yeah,
That about the Twin Towers.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, exactly.
So by going into the details, I started to accumulate ever more information. This particular episode, the series of episodes, never materialized on the local cable television show. So that's how I got involved in the more or less kind of in the Pentagon, and I started to say, well, on some of the calls that I was on, this is what I see about the Pentagon, and the pushback I would get is enormous. And by going into these particular discussions and saying, "What you're telling me I'm wrong?" I don't like to say things if I'm wrong, so I think I do my homework. So let me go back and then I would go uncover another layer. And over the course of the time period from 2015, 15 to 2017, I did a whole series of little mini topics. Can you see the shadow of the engines or shadow of the plane in the Citgo security camera? Yes. Where would it have been? It would have been over there. That's how come you can see the shadows here. Why don't I see the whole plane? Well, there's bushes, and they're kind of whited out because of the high contrast of the security cameras, and things like that. So that's one of them. There's the impact into the face of the Pentagon, and showed how it all kind of fit. It wasn't quite perfect, and then there's pushback on that. Then I found out that there was a column 9AA, the outer row of the Pentagon. The column numbering there is column AA because it sticks out like a bay window for 400 feet or so. So at column 9AA, the column is actually, this is the front. It's actually bent like this, about 2/3 of the way down. It's bent. And so what could have caused this particular piece of damage? And it turns out through the analysis and a presentation I put together, that's where the wing would have hit. And so we know how high the building was, how high the wing was. And that's consistent with the retaining wall over here, because when the engine the engine was over here, it hit the retaining wall. The wing would have been right above it, and that would have hit right here. So everything kind of aligned up. So that explains column 9AA being bent and bowed. It's still connected to the top and the bottom, so it wasn't, whatever impacted it wasn't severe enough, like in many of the others, to sever the columns. Some of them are seen hanging. Some of them are just knocked out and gone completely. Yeah. So but just by taking a look at the details, you can begin to start to piece together how things looked. And then on the far right-hand side, there's the last column on the first floor that is standing is column 18. The next column over is column 19. And on top of column 19 is the second floor, column 19. And that about 18 inches up is bashed, and it's bashed in like this. It's mechanically knocked in. So it can't be explosives that would do this. And then the next column 20, has something a little higher up. So this is about 18 inches off the second floor slab, and then this other little, the limestone is knocked off at about 36 inches, and there's no damage on the others, but the window frame between those two columns, between 20 and 21, I guess it is actually bent. And the way that the windows, in one of the presentations that I put together, was how is the Pentagon facade made? Not so much the facade, but the front wall. Because when I first started, and I repeated this when I would do my outreach around the Pentagon, in plain sight, I forgot the guy who did it, but it was, he would say, "Oh, how did you create this C-ring exit hole with a small impact hole that's 20 feet in diameter for the big plane, and then you have another 20-foot opening in the C-ring exit hole? How did it all go through?" And it had to go through 9 feet of steel reinforced concrete.
Yeah. And this is what I always heard as well, which is what I told you yesterday, was that it was hugely reinforced on the outside. And no,
Right.
go ahead, please.
So it turns out, upon lots of research and finding pictures and where they talked about it, is there's zero. Did you hear that? 0 feet of steel reinforced concrete, and there were the outer wall was the original limestone. It was backed by infill brick, 2 layers of regular house bricks, within concrete frames, and then to reinforce it, they had taken out the wooden windows, wooden and glass windows, and they would replace them with a steel inset on 8-inch steel tubes, not girders or anything, tubes, with cross members, and the windows were there. They weighed a couple of tons apiece, so they had to be pretty sturdy. And then they ran bolts up and down to tie everything together. And the whole purpose was to prevent a truck bomb on the outside from exploding and sending shattered glass, shattered bricks into the occupants, killing them. In the Kobar Towers, that was the most significant piece of the damage for killing the Marines, was the shrapnel. So the Pentagon was designed against a truck bomb on the outside. There's also a layer of Kevlar to keep the brick shards, but it was not a very significant piece. It was just keeping the shards from flying. And that's it. Then you have the columns. They're, I think, 22-inch columns every 10 feet, all the way through to the outer C-ring. And the C-ring, where the hole is, that people talk about, is, again, it's a 20-foot wide, 14-foot high, 2 brick thick wall. No reinforcing. That's it. And so it didn't take a lot of energy and we see things like landing wheels in the debris that's outside of it. So there's some massive things that have actually hit it and knocked down this unsupported wall. And you can see pipes that are bent kind of outward. Nothing suggests an explosive on the outside or explosives on the inside. And everything's kind of just tumbled. Most of the bricks are just kind of tumbled down. They're not, far away. Of course, some things are. So I would do all these things, and it was my attention to detail. One of the other things that I ultimately did is in 2017, I took a look at the generator trailer. Now, the generator trailer was hit by the right engine as the plane approached, and everybody just assumed that the plane was going straight and it hit column 14. It was always aimed at column 14. Nothing could change it. It was going to go right through because there's so much mass, blah, 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 blah. I took a look and I said, my basic understanding of physics and engineering dynamics says when you take that much energy, the energy to move a multi-ton trailer, it's got to have some impact.
Yeah.
The plane is not on a track. It's in the air. There's nothing except its momentum that's keeping it from doing certain things and all the aerodynamics. So if you're going to take energy out of one side, the other side has to, there's got to be a yaw rotation. So I took a look at this, and I did a whole series of kind of graphical simulations. What would, if I had a little bit of a 1 degree turn for every couple of feet I went forward? Where would I end up? And I wanted to make sure that my right wing would basically hit almost perpendicular, almost flat against columns 18, 19, and 20, because that seemed to be how the damage looked. And on the other side, I wanted it to impact at column 9AA, 2/3 of the way up. And what this ultimately did is it gave me a yaw rotation. That's kind of a rotation in the air. The nose actually turns out, upon further research, that it wasn't headed towards column 14. It was to the right of column 13, between 13 and 14, and that this yaw rotation shifted the nose to column 14, but that kicked the tail out a little bit, or the tail moved out to the left, and impacted the Pentagon, or the facade. Now, with the wing down here, and impacting something up here, the only thing that could be up here is the tail. And so when you take a look at the Will Morris photo, you see that there's supposed to be beams, the Pentagon's columns and beams, and the beam between column 11 and 13 is missing, and all the bricks that surrounded the window, the infill bricks, they're all fallen away, and you can see the window frames, you can see the windows, but everything is fallen away underneath it. And the only thing that could have done that would be an impact to the tail. It's the only thing that is above the height-wise above the wing. So that explained that, and with a little more refinement, I got it so it looked really well. Of course, it's not an engineering calculation, finite element analysis, because I don't have those tools. But this is what the mechanics show would happen. It explains why where the tail is, and everything aligns perfectly.
Yeah.
Now, most recently, I took a look at the generator trailer, specifically, and in particular, it has a streak across the top, and that is in exactly the right place to be a scar or a trace of the wing's flap track fairing. I can say that 3 times.
Right.
And what that is that is the mechanism that takes the wing flaps, and when they want to extend them out, it controls how it goes. And so they are housed in these fairings, these mechanisms. Some people say they look like canoes underneath the wings, and they're not very wide, but it was in the exact right location for the to make the scar. And if you do that, now you know with great fidelity the horizontal location of the plane. Otherwise, it's kind of it's coming in somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Now I can tell you within a few inches of where it was.
I was going to say, which years down the road is incredible that you have actively decoded this, because once again, that it's always been the narrative, as people would say, that a plane hit the Pentagon, but
right.
People have the theorists have said for years that it was not a plane, that it was more than likely a missile, because once again, hardened concrete, things like that. Then new data requires new research, so the fact that you were bringing all this new data to the table is really a game-changing situation.
It is. And so let's talk about a couple other little pieces of data here. So one of the other kind of the research projects I did was looking at the wire spools, because people say, look at those wire spools, how could they be there? Obviously they were pre-planted or something like that.
Yeah.
Or how can this be? It's ridiculous to think a plane. Okay, so when I was doing these precision measurements, this most recent one, I said, well, how far is it from the flap track fairing to the other engine? And it's 63.1 feet. So I put that down and I rolled it out, knowing the kind of the dimensions of the engine. And if you kind of go through this and there's a slight rotation, it ends up hitting the retaining wall right where it's supposed to, and it hits the back of what I call spool number 7. It's a tall spool.
Okay.
And so it's actually hit like a croquet ball. All right. The other ones, the balls next to it, don't get hit, but in croquet, the one that the mallet hits goes flying. So spool 7 got hit, and it also apparently went and hit spool number 4, and the 2 of those went rolling off. Spools 1, 2, and 3 were hit by the plane fuselage, it appears, because they were off to one side. And that leaves spools 5 and 6 that were right next to 7 untouched. And so when people say, how can this happen? Well, just like when you play croquet, you can hit one ball and the other ones are unaffected.
Yeah.
And so that's where you see them in the immediate aftermath of the plane impact. Is you've got these 2 spools there. The big one that had been standing to the left next to the retaining wall is gone. The retaining wall's got a hole in it, a gouge in it. And so everything just fits together absolutely perfect. So there's one more thing I want to get to before we talk
Please.
about the flight data recorder.
Absolutely.
And that is, as the plane had this yaw rotation, the left engine is now no longer traveling at the same 52-degree angle. It's now been shifted over, and it's got a slightly different, steeper angle, which means it's going to go more straight inside the Pentagon, because it's kind of like swung around, and it's now in a different direction. And so the American Society of Civil Engineers Building Performance Report has pictures of lots of columns. And I'm looking around. I've looked at these pictures like hundreds of times, but when you go looking for specific things, you say, can I see something that looks like? And sure enough, column, I think it's 9B, maybe it's 9C, is really kind of odd. I'm going to do this twice. It looks like I can't do it. This goes in like this. It's got a circle indentation, a round indentation, halfway, right? So if this is the column, halfway up, it's got an indentation, and it looks something like that. What could cause that? Well, I don't know. It's either the engine casing impacting it and bending the column, still attached to the top and the bottom, or it's the wing, a piece of the wing that's kind of wrapping around. Now, what this does is it puts the engine in exactly the right location to be under what's called the uplifted slab. There's in the middle section in the D ring on the second floor, there's a piece of slab that is they call it the uplifted slab because it's pushed up. It's actually not exploded up, which everyone says, but it's actually tented. It's mechanically snapped up like two pieces of a graham cracker, right? And so this is not what you'd expect from a big explosion. And Major David King was not too far away. He survived. Everything suddenly turned into fire around him, and said, "What happened here?" No explosions. What could have caused that? Well, people also ask what happened to the engines. So now now that we know where the engine trajectory would have been, let's talk about the engine. Chris, you ever watch football?
Yes.
Okay, so you know that you know what a quarterback does. He throws a ball, puts a little spin on the ball, right? And when you go down the far end, you see that there's a receiver, and there's someone trying to keep him from catching the ball.
Yeah.
All of that, frequently the person who's trying to prevent him from catching the ball doesn't have to catch the ball.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to knock it physically hard out of the way. All he has to do is touch it.
Yep.
Because then what'll happen with the gyroscopic rotation, when you touch the ball, it's going to, depending on where you touch it in the rotation direction, it'll kick out. And then once it kicks out, it wobbles and it's uncontrolled, and the receiver
deflects and loses its gyroscopic control,
and it's hard to catch.
Yeah.
So the engines that are inside the Pentagon now are no longer wrecking balls. They are rotating massive high-speed engines with lots of rotational inertia. So when they've hit these columns and they have to change direction, they're going to kick up. And so the evidence is, I think, unassailable that what happened is the engines, both engines, did a tumble and bounce, and in this one case, hit the second floor slab and tented it up. That seems to be the best explanation for it.
Okay.
So that kind of covers the kind of the physical damage. And so now my most recent research that stemmed from the generator trailer flap track fairing was in discussions with Piers and Ted Walters from the International Center for 9/11 Studies, where this research was first published. They gave me a lot of pushback.
Sure.
They're resistant to large plane impact.
Hypothesis.
Yeah. So the big thing is, they said the flight data recorder shows that the plane's coming in with a 3-degree to the right angle. For the thing that you're showing, Wayne, it's not going to work. Your wings too high up. It's not in the right. It's not in the right orientation. All this stuff. I said, well, this is as far as I can go. The flap track fairing stuff works. I can't. Let's just publish it the way it is. But that left me in an unsatisfactory position.
Sure.
I said, I don't like this. So I fumed for a while internally. We got it published and mulled it over and said, and also I talked with another person who about the flight data recorder, and he just says, it's all a piece of crap, useless, faked. And I, for our 2019 conference in Denver on the Pentagon, David Chandler, Ken Jenkins, John Wyndham, and Warren Stutz, I think that was it. There were some things that were pointed out, such as a lateral acceleration upon impact. And I said, well, David, why don't you ever talk about this? He says, it's good. I don't really believe that it's accurate. I can't tell whether it's hitting the wall. Oh, come on, can't you talk? Well, all right, so I'll look at it. So I got the data off of Warren Stutz's website, warrenstutt.com. All the flight data recorder stuff is there. He found, because the flight data recorder was impacted and the battery got disconnected, the last 4 seconds didn't have what they call a parity bit at the end, and so the automated system for decoding it didn't work because it didn't have the right parity bit. It said it's corrupted. It was still written, but it wasn't finished.
Okay, wasn't a finalized file to be able to be read fully by the
conventional software, the vendor's software. So I knew that this data was there, and so I started to look at it. And lo and behold, that long story short, I first wanted to show that there was manual control or not of the of Flight 77. So you take a look. There's a section. There's a report on the automated on the autopilot when it was turned on or was turned off. And you can see that the plane flies up. The steering wheel is nice and smooth. No really weird things going on. And then when the manual control is turned off, the pitch of the plane is going up and down. There's lots of acceleration, front and back, forward and back. As the actually Flight 77, the hijackers, yes, they were, actually did things like forward throttle, go back. The plane would have longitudinal acceleration. It would start to go up. He actually played with he took the plane out for spins. Unlike Flight 93, in which I think they were just clueless. They were clueless. It just looks like they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't do any of this stuff. So as I'm looking at this, I'm noticing all the things that happen that are so different during the periods of manual control when the autopilot is turned off, and the approach. And it's absolutely clear that during the periods of manual control, they were when the autopilot was turned off, they were under manual control of people acting chaotically. pretty well controlled, but they were inexperienced, obviously. And that's why
Okay.
you have autopilots to keep everything moving nice and smooth.
Yep.
And then when you get to the actual impact, what I found is that there was lateral acceleration when the right wing hit the generator the right engine hit the generator trailer. It got kicked to the left. That's the yaw. The left engine it was still at full thrust. The lateral longitudinal acceleration still increased, which means that it wasn't a data point associated with the impact into the wall, into the facade, because it meant that was a valid lateral acceleration from the generator trailer. The roll to that had been at 3 degrees to the left now was at 1.8, and then on the wall it was 0. And after I actually built a 3D model so I could show it using Legos.
Which is impressive. Like it was a straight Doc Brown moment when you showed me the pictures yesterday. It was like, this model isn't to scale, but it was very much to scale. Actually,
it was
very to scale.
It was not. It was within about a foot to 18 inches, with the difference between the pegs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So the fine detail didn't really. Wasn't perfect, but it was close.
It was great.
But when I went through the generator trailer impact, I noticed that the generator trailer got rolled over in my little simulation, and as it rotated, and then the front goes down, and that meant that the back went up because I put a little pivot in the middle, and that's the front. That would be so the trailer actually pivoted around the front right wheel as it got pushed down, over, and the back got kicked up, and that is what apparently impacted, knocked up into the flap track fairing, creating the scar. It wasn't the plane hitting it; it was the trailer getting kicked up. That gave an upward momentum to the wing, which shows up as as an acceleration, a vertical acceleration of the whole plane, which changed the roll from the 3.1 to the 1.8, and then with that, assuming that there's still some energy in that flexing wing, that it continued to rotate, provide the roll energy, so that it was 0 another eighth of a second later when it hit the wall. So everything kind of really fits. The flight data recorder absolutely contains information that nobody knew about. And this is probably the most important point I want to make in all this discussion.
Please.
Is that people say the flight data recorder for AE-77 was faked. The impact data into the trailer and the facade and the half second before it was not part of the official story, in that it wasn't part of the decoded data. It was in a section that Warren Stutt would not find until 2010 or 2011. And then there's the question of how would the NTSB have faked the data? Yeah. And the reason this is critical is that there's no reports, zero reports of anyone talking about yaw rotation that had anything to do with the official story. Yeah. It's not in the ASCE report. Yeah. It's not in the Purdue simulation. That the plane just goes straight in.
All of that makes it look like a beer can crushing into a building.
Right.
Almost.
There's nobody ever talked about it. The only person I ever used the word, and the reason I used the word, thank you, was Sergeant Legassi that CIT interviewed, and he says, well, the plane hit and did a yaw rotation, and he questioned that, what's a yaw rotation? He describes it. So that's where I heard the word yaw, put it in the back of my head, and so.
this is the prime example of what I say on the show all the time, Wayne, which is when new data comes into a data set, you've got to take the time to analyze it, and you've got to be able
Right.
to even shift your own paradigm to even just allow the new data in.
Yeah. So just to kind of conclude this
Please.
this segment here, this impact detail that's in the FDR could not have been known to the NTSB technicians to stick it in there. Warren Stutt only found it. Even when it was found, David Chandler, who looked at it, had no interest in it because he didn't know what to do with it.
It didn't fit the model in the story.
It didn't at the time.
Yeah.
And then when I go and go through the details of the yaw rotation, it makes sense, but it's still not definitive.
Yeah.
And only when I do the flap track fairing and do a few other things does it fit perfectly. And now you cannot claim that this part of this AA-77 flight data recorder is faked. It's to me, it is got a 0% probability of it being faked. Now, Flight 93, there's another interesting thing. Immediately after the hijacking, time of the hijacking, the horizontal stabilizers are changed. Now, after the hijacking, the phone calls say that people were pushed to the back. That means that the back's going to be heavier, so the thing called the horizontal stabilizer will change to keep the
compensate for the additional weight.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we see that. As a matter of fact, there's several stages where it looks like people are moving back and back and further and back, hiding in the back. Right. In Flight 93, not only when there's the sound of the fight in the cockpit during the takeover, the control column gets pushed down. The autopilot apparently is reset because it doesn't record as being out, but the mechanics say that it had been turned off momentarily. It recovers, loses 600 feet. And then shortly after that, the horizontal stabilizers show weight to the back being compensated for. And then in the Moussaoui trial, there's a transcript for the cockpit voice recorder, and it says that I think it's 9:57:57. There's a statement by one of the hijackers saying there's an attack, and that exactly coincides with a change in the horizontal stabilizer to the weight moving forward, which is consistent with the let's roll. So the Flight 93. No one has looked at this stuff in 24 years.
This is one of them that I've gotten into with people for years and years, because it goes straight into Malaysia, into the Malaysia flight, where it's like they vanished this group of people. They took them, they put them into and like gave them new lives. Like people think that the Challenger crew is still alive, that was utterly faked. Yeah. And when you start getting into that, when you start getting into the issue of how are you gassing that many people? And then I can understand the remote control. We have remote control of major drones. We have F-16s that fly by remote control, so we can test missiles. They don't put a pilot in that thing when they're shooting it down with a missile. So I'm not denying remote control, but the whole story that a bunch of people were gassed, relocated, and dead bodies were put in their place, and that's what was in the plane, is totally blown away by the fact that flight data recorder information shows the actual a considerable, because it's not like it's like, hey, somebody's purse rolled down the aisle and shifted weight. We're talking hundreds of pounds of weight shift, enough to make a horizontal stabilizer compensate instead of a pilot doing it.
Yep.
You know, so that like, and once again, numerous situations that by timestamp of recording match up with these moments.
Yeah.
In the hijacking.
Right.
So
you know, I'll conclude. How many times have I said I'll conclude with, right? So let me just talk about the United Airlines 175, which hits the South Tower.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that have looked at the video and they say, oh, there's this complicated thing at the end that just is what's needed to get into the tower. And so this has to be a remote control thing. And I look at it. I'm an engineer, and I know what control systems are supposed to do. And I cannot, for the life of me, envision someone whose job it is to write a control system. We're going to hijack. We're going to fake the hijacking. We're going to hit the South Tower. We're going to go in, and it's mission critical because we got to hit the towers. For them to get off course so bad that the correction is an out of bounds adjustment, not just one but two. Because there's a lot of variables that you can't correct for, and if you go way out of one, and assuming we'll just get back, you don't know if it might have been a gust of wind that kind of blew it, and you've shifted over another 6 feet, or 8 feet, or maybe even more
from target zone.
From target zone. Yeah. So for a rodeo type approach that's faked to do this is inconceivable to me as an engineer. If you're going to do it, it's going to be gradual adjustments would be needed across a steady flight path in order to hit the target.
Yeah,
that's how cruise missiles work. That's how there's no incoming fire to dodge or anything like that. So for all these other hypotheses to exist and be credible, faked or turns that make no sense just to make it look like it.
Just to make it fit the story.
Just right. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But this does open up the entire Pandora's box of
absolutely
what was the goal of 9/11?
Yeah, the end game.
The end game to me was to create the global war on terror.
Yeah,
and I've mentioned this next hypothesis to a number of people here, and I've gotten a lot of pushback. And that is, I don't think hitting the towers was necessary. I think the hijackings by themselves and the attempted attacks would have been sufficient to launch the global war on terror. Potentially, there was other things. Maybe they were truck bombs, supposedly in the basement of the Twin Towers.
We know that there were reports of other people with explosives going for tunnels, going for bridges, things like that.
Right. So we don't know what other fallback positions there could have been to create the terror. But I think the Pentagon had to be one of the things that was attacked. I think
statement-wise, absolutely.
Yeah, I think Flight 77, when it came in, it was looking to see what the damage. Where's the fire from Flight 93, and there wasn't any, so they had to go make the turnaround to hit the Pentagon. This is my guess. And then, of course, that's because Flight 93 was delayed, and it doesn't appear to be any communications between the hijackers.
Yeah.
So this seems to be how it unfolded. But the key thing that I get the pushback from my most recent question is, how important is it that the towers were destroyed? And because we're here and the towers are the central piece of evidence for 9/11, I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, of course that had to be," and of course you had to hit it. So you need to have remote control to do it. But I don't even think remote control could work. One last thing about the approach into the Pentagon. We had the spiral descent, and the plane kind of lined up. And the flight data recorder has a roll to the right, except when it doesn't. And it looks like what happened was it had a roll to the right, and as it's straightening out, it still had a slight roll to the right. And I thought they were trying to get to the center courtyard. To me, that's the biggest target.
Yeah,
you want to hit the biggest bullseye, the center of the bullseye. But I think they had a visual on the VDOT tower. There's a big tower next to the Sheridan. And if they went to the right and the wind is coming from the north, they could have potentially been pushed unrecoverably off and missed the Pentagon.
Yeah.
But if they went to the left of the tower, so they rolled to the left a little bit, and they went between the Sheridan and the VDOT tower, and maybe even hit it. We don't know. There's some reports of someone climbing up there the next day to inspect it or repair something. Then the wind would have blown it towards the Pentagon a little bit. But it seems like that when you look at the data, it's very suggestive of this last-minute correction to avoid the VDOT tower.
Yeah,
which they then had to dive, and the flight simulators examples that we were shown last night at the conference here, where if you didn't dive deep enough, you ended up flying over.
Yeah.
That they went low, and that's how come they hit the trees, the light poles,
Yeah.
the generator trailer.
Well, and
So-
like you said, I also ascribe to the fact of I don't think even minus the possibility of explosives or nanothermite or anything like that in the towers, Wayne. I also ascribe to the fact of I don't think message wise, I don't think we would have had to have hit the towers to go into the war on terror. Period. I think 4 hijackings would have been enough for us to go after somebody, at least to have the motivation. And like I've always said, it's really curious how we have a bunch of hijackers from another country, and passports from another country, but that is not the country that we went to war with. We went to war with a propped up dictator that was put in by our CIA, as well as a terrorist leader who was propped up and financed and trained by our CIA. We went after 2 CIA assets, not after the country that actively had the terrorists.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating to me. And you can feel free to look it up, folks. It's pretty interesting stuff that not a single one of the hijackers came from those countries or
Nope.
was tied to them.
Yeah.
And that's by FBI reports. That's by the 9/11 report. Everything.
And there's actually a very critical piece here, in that Barbara Honegger's here, and she was instrumental in although it's not part of the official story. Barbara Honegger was the driving force behind getting the 28 redacted pages from the House investigation potentially read into the record, like Mike Gravel did with the Pentagon Papers.
That's right.
And that was apparently the most brilliant thing, and Barbara deserves all the credit for it.
Absolutely.
Because that got the Obama administration to say, "Oh, there's nothing here. Just redact a few words, and we're all set." But if it wasn't for that, it's still not been released. And the thing is, that shows that the FBI knew about it, that people were funding it, that was well known.
Yep.
And that makes it not just a let it happen, but a make it happen.
Yeah.
And shows that they're nurturing a select set of individuals who are willing to, potentially willing to go through with this plan.
Well, and even the first attack on the Twin Tower, or the World Trade Center, rather, I should say specifically, because it was the parking garage. Even that first attack was 2 separate FBI informants from 2 different cases, who the case officers were like, you know what we should do? We should get informant 1 and 2B together, and we should see what information we could get from them if we let them shake hands. And then they ended up planning a bombing. So had the FBI never introduced these 2 guys, we would have never had the first bombing on the World Trade Center with the truck to begin with.
Or it would have been different.
Yeah. One of the 2. And that's just it. When you start looking at these things, once again, like I've always said, it is at the very least a fact of, sadly and horribly, our government or actors within it saw something was happening and did nothing as, yes, a means of exacted control, as a means by which to pass laws, to remove liberty, or even to allow black budget programs to get higher in ranking with contractors thereof, who then served us overseas in these campaigns, Blackwaters and things like that. So I want to thank you so much for your time today, Wayne. It's more than enlightening. And like I told you yesterday, I think that you are a very, very keystone person, at least in these interviews, as far as an idea of how to bring in new data to a data set, and how to be able to readjust and pivot and look at things from a scientific perspective when presented new data, instead of instead of ignoring the ladder that's being lifted to the tree that you've climbed up in.
Details matter.
That's
my mantra. So
they do, absolutely. And I'm only an audio video engineer. I am in no right an engineer like you are. However, it's one of those, when the wiring diagram doesn't work out, you either need to look at the person that drew the wiring diagram or figure out a new wiring diagram, because you've been given new data. So thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. Before we let you go, let everybody know where they can go to find your presentations, where they can go to find your work, where they can go to find all of your important research into 9/11, Wayne.
Well, the place where I'm working on putting most of my archives are up on David Chandler's website, which is 911speakout.org.
Great.
There's a section called Research Collections, and Wayne Coste is one of them.
Okay.
I also have another website called Censored by Cefi, censored by Cefi, SEFI .org, and that recounts me trying to present a paper to the European Engineering Educators Association in 2015 when I had an accepted abstract. It's in their booklet. I show up to France, then they say,
no.
You can't present. And I say, I'm gonna show up and to the board meeting and say, you're not allowed to come. When I came, they walked me out the door. It was at a little university outside of Orleans. So at the little tram station, I handed out copies in English or French, had two different languages of the paper.
Wow.
But
You're my kind of guy, Wayne.
some of the materials are there, and that's one of the other archives.
Well, once again, thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for all of your work into this. As I've told people for years, at the very least, we need truth. We need disclosure. We need to be able to bring these things before Congress in a larger way for the victims, for the families, things like that. That is what true justice is looking for the truth doggedly till the end. So thank you for your work into that. Greatly appreciated. While you are online checking out all of the amazing work of Wayne Coste, everybody, make sure to stop on by the International Center for 9/11 Justice at ic911.org. Make sure to stop on by Richard Gage's website, richardgage911.com. When we come back from this quick commercial break, everybody, make sure to stop on by curiousrealm.com. It's where you can like, follow, subscribe. It's where you can share this episode with everybody that you know that may be having an issue with accepting that something else may have happened that day. And, of course, we will be back with our continuing coverage of the Turning the Tide 9/11 Justice Conference right here in Washington, D.C., right after this, folks. The key to good science is good research. At the heart of good research is a good data set. With the field observation and encounter log from Curious Research, you can easily keep track of your investigative information all in one place, making it easier to review cases and readily see comparisons and contrasts between them. Whether out in the woods squatching, in a back room gathering EVPs, or using high-tech gear to track UFO, UAP activity, this easy-to-carry, pocket-sized scientific data log is the perfect companion for any field researcher. You can find your copy of the Curious Research Field Observation and Encounter Log at Amazon.com or visit the official Curious Realm store at curiousrealm.com/store to reserve your copy for yourself, your family, or a mind that you want to open. That website again is curiousrealm.com/store.